Okay, good morning to all of you. Can somebody keep track of the attendance? Tanush, can you keep track of the attendance?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Can you see this presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, welcome to you all to this 7th lecture under module 4. In previous session, we discussed on how to query the file system and check the file status of both a file and a directory as well, and how to use assert that method in order to check the specific output with the expected output with the specific output, and listing the files and path filter using regular expressions, how we can filter certain paths and get only the anticipated paths. And also we have seen how to delete the data. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss on anatomy of a file read and anatomy of file write, how exactly file read and write happens between the client and HDFS cluster. Okay, this diagram depicts how actually the HDFS client interacts with HDFS cluster in order to read a file. When HDFS client wants to read a file from the cluster, then it initially calls an open method on file system class, which for this particular cluster it is distributed file system. So when HDFS client wants to read a file from the HDFS cluster, it calls an open method which will be called through this distributed file system component, distributed file system classes object. Now this distributed file system will in turn call a remote processor call. It will give a remote processor call to the name node. This name node will first check whether the file is existing or not in order to read the data from the file. If the file is not already existing, then it throws an IO exception because it can't read any data from a non-existing file. But if the file is existing, then it will give the addresses of the data nodes on which those file blocks are situated. We already learned in previous classes that every file is divided into blocks and it is distributed onto various data nodes. Now, in this case, when this distributed file system produces a remote processor call to this name node in turn will communicate back with the addresses of the data nodes on which that file's blocks are located. Right now, those details are sent to the FS data input stream. Those data node addresses are written to the FS data input stream, and that object is given back to the HDFS client. Now, this HDFS client will use that FS data input stream object in order to read the data from. Okay. Now, this FS data input stream will in turn wrap DFS input stream. This FS data input stream in turn wraps distributed file system input stream object, which is actually responsible for managing this data node and name node input output operations. Now, when this FS data input stream is ready with all the block addresses on the data nodes, now it will check for the closest data node. It will check for the proximity of the data node to the client. It will locate the data node which is nearby to this client and try to read the copy of that block from that data node. Say the data node, the block copy is available on this first data node. So this DFS input stream by FS data input stream will again give a read request to the data node, which will stream the data back to the client. When DFS input stream gives a read method, gives a read call to the data node, this data node will stream the data back to the HDFS client. Now, once the block from this data node is completed, then immediately it will check for the next data node for the next block, and the data is read from that data node. The block is read from the data node, and it is again streamed back to the HDFS client. So the HDFS client repeatedly will give this read request to the data nodes in order to read the data completely for the file. Now, when all the data from these data nodes are completed by this DFS input stream, this DFS input stream at the same time sends request to the name node to send the block addresses of the next coming blocks for that file. So the name node will communicate the block addresses for the remaining blocks in that file. And again, this DFS input stream will keep calling this read method in order to read the rest of the blocks on the data nodes available in proximity, that is near to the client. And once all the data from the data nodes is read, then HDFS client will pass a close method, will call a close method on this DFS input stream. When this close method is called, then it will close the DFS input stream, and the read operation is complete. Okay, this is how the read operation is performed. Now, let us discuss about some exceptional cases. Say, when the DFS input stream is trying to read data from the data node, say if some error occurs, what will happen? When some error occurs, then immediately it will flag the data node to be a failed data node, because an error has occurred while attempting to read data from that data node. It will flag the data node as an erroneous data node, and it will also inform name node that this is an erroneous data node, and it will try to read that same block from some other healthy node which is available in next closest location. And it also keeps track of the failed data nodes, so that it need not consult those data nodes again and again for the next coming up blocks, right? And it also performs this DFS input stream also performs some checksums. These checksums, say they implement some algorithms like message digest algorithms, which will see the consistency of the data, integrity of the data, whether the data that is stored on the data node in the form of a block is same as the data read. If the data stored and the data read are the same, then these checksums will indicate that the data is consistent. Now, when these checksums are checked, and if there is any corrupted data that is found by DFS input stream, corrupted data in the sense these checksums are not equal, that says that the data is corrupted. It is not in the same form as it is stored, right? In that cases, when the data is corrupted, this DFS input stream will see whether there is a replica of that particular block available on another data node. So before reading that replica, this DFS input stream informs the name node that this data node is holding a corrupted block. Keep a note of it and remove that block from that data node. It indicates name node. Only then this DFS input stream attempts to read the replica of that block on another healthy data node. Okay, that is the use of checksums. Now, one important aspect of this design is that the client contacts data nodes directly to retrieve data and is guided by the name node to the best data node for each block. So this client, in this case, the client interacts with the data nodes directly, but always it is guided by the name node. Why? Because the name node provides the client with the block addresses on which data nodes those blocks are actually residing. So this is a striking feature of this particular design. And this design allows HDFS to scale to a large number of concurrent clients. It can serve the requests of concurrent clients because the data traffic is spread across all the data nodes in the cluster. There are several data nodes in the cluster, and the read is distributed actually in this case. Means because the files are distributed on multiple data nodes, even the read requests can be distributed across the data nodes so that simultaneous reads can actually speed up the process of reading. That is why this design allows HDFS to scale to a large number of concurrent clients requesting for various read and write operations because the data traffic is spread across all the data nodes in the cluster. And name node serves only the block location requests. It doesn't serve any data requests, data read requests. Why? Because if the name node is again overwhelmed with this read request, it can't efficiently serve the block location requests of the clients. And if you want to scale up, if you want to increase the number of data nodes on which the data is stored, the metadata that has to be stored with the name node also increases. So in that case, if name node is further assigned this data request to be served, in that case, it will be it will cause a bottleneck. That is why name node serves only block location requests. It doesn't serve any data location requests. Data read requests. Now I'll just repeat once again. In this case, HDFS calls an open method on the file it wants to read, and this call is given to distributed file system, which is an extension of file system class. Now this distributed file system will in turn give a remote processor call to the name node, which will give the initial blocks of that file where those blocks are actually residing on the data nodes. Those addresses are passed to the distributed file system. Now this distributed file system will again give the HDFS client the object of FS data input stream into which the data has to be read. Now this FS data input stream in turn wraps distributed file system input stream, which is responsible to communicate between the name node and the data nodes. Now HDFS client calls a read method on this DFS input stream, which in turn reads the data from the closest data nodes available, from the blocks on the closest data nodes available. So once the data is read from the first block, from the first data node, then it reads the second block from the second data node available and the third block from the third data node available. At the same time, DFS input stream also consults the name node in order to get the block locations of the rest of the blocks in the file, so that the name node will provide this DFS input stream the addresses of the data nodes for the rest of the blocks of the file. Now, once the HDFS client completes reading all the blocks from the data nodes by calling read continuously, and once the file reading is complete, then it will call a close method on this DFS input stream, which in turn closes FS data input stream and completes the read operation. Right? And we also discussed if some error occurs, how it will handle. When some error occurs while reading the data, then immediately this DFS input stream will inform the name node that an error has occurred with this data node, so that it will not have to reattempt again and again to read some other blocks on this erroneous data node. Also, when some data is corrupted, which is found after checking, after implementing some checksums, In that case, it will also inform the name node that this data node on this data node is corrupted, so that it will attempt to read a replica of that block on a different data node, right? That is how the errors are resolved. Now let us see the anatomy of a file write. In the previous case, we have seen how HDFS client can read a file from HDFS cluster by communicating with name node and data node. Now let us see how a HDFS client attempts to write a file onto HDFS cluster. For that, initially this HDFS client will call a create method on the distributed file system class. This distributed file system class is a specialization of the file system class. Now this DFS, this distributed file system, will in turn pose a remote processor call to the name node in order to create the file at the said location. Now, this name node will perform some initial checking. In the sense, say if the file is already existing with the same name, then it will give an IO exception. It will throw an IO exception. Why? Because the file is already existing, and a new file can't be written with the same file name. And also it checks whether there are proper permissions given to the client in order to create that new file. Now, if the file is not existing and there are sufficient permissions for the HDFS client to create the new file, in that case, the name node gives back where exactly the file can be created, on which data node the file can be created. But still, it doesn't communicate about the blocks into which it can be divided. Right? Now, this distributed file system in turn creates FS data output stream object into which the data can be written into by the HDFS client. Now, this FS data output stream, same as in the case of FS data input stream, this FS data output stream also wraps a DFS output stream object which takes care of communicating with the name node and data node. So this in turn wraps DFS output stream object. Right? Now this DFS output stream will store all the data that has to be written to the file in the form of packets. Now the HDFS client, when it starts to write the data to the data nodes through DFS output stream, this DFS output stream will divide the data into packets which will be written to an internal queue called as data queue. The packets of data will be written to an internal queue called as data queue, through which the data will be written onto the data nodes. Right? Now, this this data queue is consumed by a data streamer. This data queue is consumed by a component called as data streamer, which actually communicates with the name node in order to get the blocks into which the file data has to be written and on which data nodes those blocks are distributed. Okay, now this data streamer will get those block location information from the name node, and accordingly, because the replication factor is 3, the name node decides that each block has to be written onto 3 data nodes. 3 copies of the blocks have to be created. So at a time in the pipeline of data nodes, 3 data nodes will be put in an order, and the data packets through the data streamer will be first written to the initial data node, and then that packet is passed on to the next data node in the pipeline, and that block is written onto the second data node, and further that packet is passed on to the third data node in the pipeline, and that packet is written to that data node also. In this case, we see that the replication factor 3 is reached. So that operation will be complete. And at the same time, data streamer also maintains another queue called as acknowledgement queue. So this data streamer which actually consumes the packets that are sent by DFS output stream, this data streamer maintains two queues. One is the data queue through which the data will be written onto the data nodes, and the next one is the acknowledgement queue. This acknowledgement queue also maintains the packets of data that are stored in the data queue, and these packets will wait till the data node gives an acknowledgement that the data is safely written onto the data node. So when a data packet is safely written onto the data node and that acknowledgement is obtained by the acknowledgement queue, that particular data packet in the acknowledgement queue is removed. This is to ensure that no data packets are lost in case of system failure. Okay, that is why data streamer maintains two copies of data packets. One is in the data queue that are written to the data node, and one is in the acknowledgement queue, which will retain the data packets until it gets an acknowledgement from the data nodes that the data packets are safely written. Okay. Now, say in this process, if a data node failure happens, then what are the sequence of steps that are performed? Now, when a data packet is being written by the data streamer onto a data node, if a data node fails, then immediately that is intimated to the name node, and that stream is closed. That data stream is closed for a moment, and all the packets that are available in the acknowledgement queue are added to the front of the data queue, so that next coming data nodes in the pipeline will not miss any of the data packets. And at the same time, the failed data node is removed from the queue, and the healthy data nodes will get the data packets, and those data packets are written onto the healthy data nodes in the queue. Now, because this data node failed, there are only two copies of the blocks written onto the data nodes. In this case, there is under replication because the replication factor is 3, and the block copies are only 2 here on the 2 data nodes. The name node further takes care to replicate it back to 3 by writing it onto another data node. And this failed data node will be removed from the pipeline, and also the new data nodes in the pipeline will be given a new identity, so that whenever this failed name node later recovers, it will not have the partial data written on its written on the data node. It will be completely removed from the pipeline by the name node, right? This is how data node failure is handled by this entire architecture. Right. Now, when all the data is written onto the data nodes into the file, after that operation is completed, after the write operation is completed, HDFS client calls a close method on DFS output stream. Now, when a close method is called on this DFS output stream, it flushes all the remaining data packets from the data queue, and when the acknowledgement is returned to the acknowledgement queue, even the acknowledgement queue is flushed out completely. And the name node is signaled that the write operation is complete. Now the name node already knows where the blocks are actually written on the data nodes with the help of the data streamer. Why? Because the data streamer will each time request the name node to allot blocks on the data nodes into which the file have to be written. So the name node simply waits for the signaling from the data streamer that the write operation have been completed. So when the write operation is completed, this HDFS client calls the close method on DFS on DFS output stream, and the file write operation is entirely completed and closed. All the relevant streams are closed now. This is how file read and write happens onto HDFS cluster. How we have seen today how we can write the data onto a HDFS cluster file and how to read the data from HDFS cluster. In the next session, which would be the concluding session, we'll see about coherency model, parallel copying with disk CP, and how to keep HDFS cluster balanced, and how to manage Hadoop archives. Any doubt? Did you understand this anatomy of file read and write? Because it is very important question. Any doubts in this? I'll just go back and try to explain you once again. Is it okay for everyone? Shall we end the class then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See you in the next lecture with the concluding session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.